Also, in terms of entrepreneurialism, if we had the same rate of women setting up small businesses here as in America, we would have tens of thousands of extra businesses creating wealth and jobs.
Miliband.
Mr. Speaker, can I start by paying tribute to Lance Corporal Liam Tasker from the Royal Army Veterinary Corps. He was doing a job that put him in such danger, and he showed extraordinary bravery and courage. We remember him, and we pass on deep condolences to his family and friends. Mr. Speaker, can the Prime Minister tell us who authorised the mission in Benghazi last weekend?
Well, the Foreign Secretary set out the position absolutely in full in the House on Monday. But let me say very clearly, I take full responsibility for everything that my government does.
Mr. Speaker, I'm grateful for him saying that, and I want to support him on Libya wherever I can. But I do say to him, there is increasing concern about the government's competence on the issue of Libya. We've had the flights fiasco. We've had talk of Colonel Gaddafi heading to Venezuela when he wasn't. We've had overblown briefing about potential military action. And we had the setback last weekend. Mr. Speaker, does the Prime Minister think it's just a problem with the Foreign Secretary, or is it a wider problem in his government?
I'm not sure I particularly want to take a lecture from Labour about dealing with Gaddafi and dealing with Libya. I think the first thing we should have from the Labour Party when it comes to Libya, Gaddafi and the release of Megrahi is an apology, which we still haven't had. But when it comes to the issue of this government's conduct, we have led the way in getting a tough UN resolution on Libya. We have led the way in getting Libya thrown out of the Human Rights Council. And we've led the way in making sure the world is preparing for every eventuality, including a no-fly zone.
Miliband.
Everybody will have heard the deafening silence about the performance of the Foreign Secretary. And there is an issue of competence, Mr. Speaker, at the heart of this government. I want to turn to another example of incompetence. Does the Prime Minister think people will notice the loss of 12,000 frontline police officers?
Well, first of all, he raises the issue of the Foreign Secretary. Let me tell you, I think we have an excellent Foreign Secretary. And when it comes to it, there's only one person I can remember round here knifing a Foreign Secretary, and I think I'm looking at him. Yeah. There we are. Right, I think we've dealt with that. Right, on the issue, we want to see police on the streets fighting crime, not stuck behind their desks fighting paper. That is what we want to achieve. And let me say to the honourable member, whoever was standing here right now would have to be reducing the Home Office budget and the policing budget. Labour were committed to a £1.3 billion cut. The question is not, are you reducing the budget? The question is, what are you doing to cut the paperwork, to freeze the pay, to deal with the allowances, to make sure the police are on the streets?
I have to say, Mr. Speaker, the more he brings my relatives into this argument, the more you know he's losing the argument. Let me just say to him, I've got a second cousin in Belgium that he'll be going after next, I'm sure. On the question of crime, he says he wants to improve frontline policing. But the West Midlands is losing 1,000 officers. Bedfordshire has scaled back gun licence checks. And now we hear that companies who have been burgled are going to be sent fingerprint kits in the post. Now, I have to say to him, I know he believes in the big society, but solving your own crimes is a bit ridiculous, even by his own standards. You have to ask, Mr. Speaker, does the Prime Minister actually have a clue what is going on out there?
I think the leader of the Labour Party is getting a little bit touchy about this issue. The point I make, if you listen to what chief constables are saying about what they want to do, here is the chief constable of the Thames Valley. What I haven't done at all is reduce the number of officers who do the patrol functions, so the officers you see out in vehicles, on foot, in uniform, on bicycles, we haven't cut those numbers at all. If you listen to the Chief Superintendent in Surrey, he actually says, we are determined to increase our frontline capability by recruiting extra police constables. The fact is, all of the leadership of the police is engaged in the exercise of keeping costs under control to make sure we get more officers on the beat. Now, whether we have to divert them to protect his relatives, I don't know, but they're going to be on the beat.
Miliband.
10 months, Mr. Speaker, and so out of touch with people up and down this country. He talks about police officers. In case you hadn't noticed, it's the Association of Chief Police Officers who say that 12,000 frontline police officers are going to be lost. And why are they being lost? Because he chose to go beyond the HMIC recommendation of 12% cuts. If he'd made 12% cuts, they could have found the savings from the back office. It's because he went too far and too fast and insisted on 20% cuts in policing.
Well, he's wrong. The Association of the Chief Police Officers aren't talking about frontline officers, so he's simply wrong about that. But let me remind him what his Home Affairs spokesman said at the time of the election. He was asked, can you guarantee if you form the next government that police numbers won't fall? Alan Johnson, no. That was the position. And he said after the election, this is what he said, if Labour had won the general election, the Home Office budget would have been cut and the police would have had to make savings. What we see today is once again jumping on a bandwagon, total opportunism. He's got no plans to reform welfare, no plans to reform the NHS, and nothing useful to say about policing.
Mr. Speaker, we know the government is out of touch, and now we know it's incompetent as well. Incompetent on Libya and incompetent on policing. The Prime Minister may act like he's born to rule, but the truth is, he's not very good at it.
It's just the usual pre-scripted questions you dreamt up earlier. But the fact is, has he got a reform plan for the NHS? No. Has he got a police reform plan? Has he got a plan to cut the deficit? No wonder, going back to the former Foreign Secretary, no wonder the former Foreign Secretary has just said this. The left is losing elections on an unprecedented scale because it's lost control of the political agenda, it's losing key arguments, and it has a deficit in ideas. That's what he said, and he's absolutely right.